Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss the last chapter of The Invisible Man, that is The Hunter Hunted. In the last chapter, that was the siege of Kemp's house, we discussed how that invisible man tried to catch Dr. Kemp, but he was unable to do that. He came to his house and destroyed and smashed everything he could, but he was unable to catch Dr. Kemp. And finally, being attacked by a policeman, he had to run away from that place to save his life. And Dr. Kemp too ran away from that house because his life, of course, was in danger. So here in this chapter, we discuss that how Dr. Kemp ran away, and finally that invisible man was caught and was beaten by the people. So here it begins like Dr. Kemp's neighbor, Mr. Helas. So Mr. Helas was one of the neighbors of Dr. Kemp who owned a villa there, and he was one of those rational minorities who didn't believe any such nonsense like the invisibility or invisible man, that there could be any such person. Whole day he was in his garden walking up there, and as per his schedule he went to have some sleep in the afternoon, though his wife was not like that and he reminded him of that, but he didn't mind all that. He went to sleep, and all through that smashing and destroying of windows, he slept there. And later on, when he woke up, he couldn't believe all that he saw because all the windows were broken, all was smashed. He just rubbed his eyes and looked out again, and he saw, yes, it was true. I'm damned, he said. All those windows were broken. It was like that, as if everything had been smashed. It seemed like an abandoned house, as if for weeks it has been abandoned after a violent riot or something like that. And he swore to himself, and he said that I could have sworn that it was all right, it was perfectly right just 20 minutes ago, but now he had to believe the things he saw before his eyes. And then suddenly something happened. There was a clash, a concussion, something like that, and of some glass. And what it was actually, the window, the shutters of the window and at Dr. Kemp's house, they were flung open, and he saw the housemaid of Dr. Kemp. She appeared out in front of him, and she was in her outdress and a hat, and she was struggling to come out. And the window, after that, the window as well was open, and she just came out of that window and then ran into a shrubbery there. And then it was Dr. Kemp. Yes, he too was beside her, and the next moment he saw Dr. Kemp standing on the windowsill, and then spring out and then running towards the shrubbery, and then vanishing behind a laburnum there, then again coming out and trying to climb over a fence. And then he saw him running at a great pace to Mr. Helas. And he felt, and Dr. Kemp was just running and stooping and running as if trying to evade the eyes of somebody. And he understood. He said, oh, it's that invisible man, the brute, it's true after all. And then at once, the very next moment, he ran into his house. His cook, who was watching all this from the top window, he saw him running at a great pace, 9 hours a mile, something like that. 9 miles an hour, something like that. So he was running at that pace towards his house. And for Mr. Helas, that thinking was to acting. So he came fast inside the house, and the very next moment it was shouting and screaming. It was asking those servants and all, close the windows, shut the doors, close everything, and he himself went up to the French window there and shut that. And then there was ringing of slamming of doors and screaming and scurrying of feet and all. And then he watched that Dr. Kemp running towards him, and he said, "I'm sorry if that invisible man is after you, but you can't come in." And he didn't allow him to come in. Dr. Kemp went round, went to the back door, side door, then came for in front again, but it was all in vain, because Mr. Hilas was not going to let him in. And so finally Dr. Kemp ran into the hill road, and he saw that all the doors and windows were shut, nobody was out there, and of course it was all because of his orders that was spread there, and the notices which were there on the boards, hoardings and walls. So the people were all inside and nobody was coming out, and Miss Dr. Kemp felt himself like doing the same run as he had watched 4 days ago through his study Belvedere, that a man who was running, and he was quite critical about that, and he was thinking of him as mad person, but now he himself was doing the same thing in his own person. And though he was of course not a practiced runner, but he was doing well, he was running good. And now for the first time it seemed that the hill road was really so vast and desolate, and it seemed this running, this journey, this going away from his house, it seemed really very tiring, and it seemed very slow. This process seemed very slow. He had never realized so that this could be the end of the town, seemed to be very far away, and it was the first time he had such a realization, because perhaps the first time he was running, and he was thinking that people perhaps could have looked out for this eventuality. Nobody was coming out, and running. Finally, he came to almost the end of the hill road, and there he could see the tram. A tram was approaching, and for a moment he thought of he got an inspiration. Though he was all excited, agitated, his face he was all wet with perspiration and all, but his mind was cool. And when he saw the tram, he had an inspiration that he should get into the tram and then close the doors and he would be safe. But then the other moment he thought he should go to the police station, so he ran. On the way there was the Jolly Cricketers. He crossed the Jolly Cricketers. He could hear the sound of doors being shut, all barred, so nobody was there. And on the other side there were heaps of gravel and other things, and then he found a group of navvies standing there. And suddenly what he did, he just jumped over an excavation, and he also felt that his pursuer, that somebody, that of course the invisible man was after him. He heard the pad sound of his footfalls and all, and so he at once jumped over the excavation and put a group of burly people between him and his chase. And then he crossed, instead of going to the police station, now what he did, he turned into a by-lane, and he hesitated at a sweetmeat shop for a second, that he should, and he passed by another vendor in the line, and then he came out, and people now were running. He could see a navy coming with a spade in his hand and just slashing just violently and viciously in the air, and the tram conductor running all cursing and just moving his fist in the with his fist all clenched. He was coming, and the other people also, when they saw this, he had already given them, Dr. Kemp had already given them an indication. He said that he is coming, the invisible man is coming. So that was the impact of all this, that they all got ready, that the navy and the tram conductor, they approached the others when they saw and all this action going on. So they also came running. And now when Dr. Kemp, one of them said, spread out. And when Dr. Kemp realized the altered condition of the chase, he also stopped, though gasping, puffing and panting. He said, now form a line, he is just here, he is close behind, form a line. And then they formed a line. Another moment, what happened, that Dr. Kemp was hit below his ear, and he went reeling, though he managed to keep his feet on the ground, and he just had a vain counter in the air, because he couldn't see that where he was. He just made a vain counter in the air. It was of course totally useless. Another moment, the next, he was hit below his jaw, and he then went on the ground. He just fell on the ground. And then the next moment, that he felt a knee pressing up, the pressure of knee against his diaphragm, and he was hasty hands gripping his throat, and he was struggling with those hands. And suddenly a spade came whirling on that invisible man's head, and there was a dull thud, and he felt some moisture on his face, and the grip loosened. And Dr. Kemp found a chance. He just took those hands away from him, and then there was other people came rushing to that sport, and there was anybody passing by could realize and feel a game of rugby was going on, because then there was pushing and pulling and jostling and hitting. And after a while, what happened, that the invisible man tried to get up, and then he flung off all those navies aside, and he stood on, or got up on his knees. But now he couldn't do anything, because all those people, there were lots of people, lot of crowd was there. He was again caught, and then again there was knocking and smashing. And after a while, it was one could hear the cry, mercy, mercy, mercy. And then there was a choking sound, and Dr. Kemp at once then approached. He said, you fools, move away, you fools, he is hurt, he is hurt. And then the people said, he is shamming. Means that he's pretending, he is just trying to befool them. No, he said, no, he's not shamming, he is hurt. And then he took his hand, and then he sat down near him, and he felt for his breathing and his heart, and he said, he is not breathing, his heart too is not alive, is not pumping. And then a woman who was standing by there, she said, see there, she pointed out at something. And then actually what it was, that invisibility was had started reverting. Now he was coming to the visible form, the arteries, the veins, the bones, everything at first opaque, and now they could be distinguished. They were coming into form. It was his arm, that woman has pointed out, and yes, it was true that he was coming back to visibility. And people all around there, they saw it him coming back, or coming back to that visible form, and finally he was lying there all naked before them. It was all white, his head, hair, it was all white because of that albinism. He was an albino, as we already discussed in the early chapters. So all that white, and someone said, just cover him up with some sheet. So, and some boys who came out, some children who came out, they were at once sent packing off, that you go back. So someone brought a bed sheet from Jolly Cricketers, then his body was covered. So now there was lying one of the first of the physicist, first of the man who discovered invisibility, a gifted physicist who ended his journey in a very miserable way. So that griffin was lying there in a shabby room, in an ill-lighted room, who perhaps could have done something else, or could have done something great for this humanity, was lying there. So this is how the hunter was hunted. This is how the invisibility was reverted, and we find that how uh, that wickedness, or those ill thoughts, ended in this form. So this is all about the hunter hunted. And now for epilogue, because that's the last thing of this novel. So for epilogue, keep watching the next video. Till then, bye bye.